Well, hello everyone. This is Robin in California. I am excited to host today with Chip Littlejohn joining me, and we have an exciting call for you. This is our Navan Friday testimony call, but we're going to have a special opportunity to have our formulator of our Daily Detox Plus product, Rik Deitsch, biochemist, on with us. And I know you're excited about that. We have a lot of questions ready to go. I wanted to open very quickly with a wonderful testimony. Carol Still has a client that she takes care of, and her name is Claudia, and she's on the autistic spectrum. I'm just going to read Claudia's testimony after starting to take the Daily Detox and the Restore product. Claudia is a healthy, beautiful, intelligent 30-year-old. She is nonverbal, but communicates her wants quite well. She has an amazing family who always puts her needs first. I have worked with her for 3 years, 2 in a day program, and 1 year in my home. I introduced the detox to her mother, and after learning about the many children on the spectrum becoming verbal, she and her mother and Claudia
back into here. I can hardly hear the Zoom call.
Hang on, guys. If you're just coming on, make sure you're muting. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Her mother and Claudia started on the product, the Daily Detox Plus, in early December. Her mother, like many parents of children with special needs, wanted to remain healthy and active as long as possible to be here for Claudia. We began the drops with Claudia very slowly, adding 1 drop each week, sometimes longer. She progressed to 10 drops 3 times a day within several weeks. The results have been amazing. Also, I'm going to say Carol was concerned about that viral issue that we've had this issue with for a year. And I'm just going to be careful not to make any medical claims, but she just wanted to make sure Claudia stayed healthy. So she knew the Daily Detox could help her immune system. So no issues with that viral issue that's been going around for Claudia or mom. Sleeping improved immediately. So getting her up early is much easier. Much more social. Prior to detox, she would lay on the bed in a bedroom by herself rather than hang out with her sisters on Sundays. Now she's out with them, out with the family. More calm and focused, grinds her teeth. This is more calm, so she's not grinding her teeth, chewing her tongue, or spitting as much as she used to. Eye contact is off the charts now, much more present, more affectionate, smiles a lot, and is making new sounds. Claudia seems to rock to the rhythm of music, and that's never happened before. Can see enjoyment in her face, mischievous, giggles, must be stronger because sometimes she is pushy or pinches with more strength. The changes that I'm most excited about is that we are able to carry on a nonverbal communication, wrinkling our noses. Sometimes she starts it and we go back and forth. Or if I start it, she'll mimic me. In the past, she would wrinkle her nose, but there was no response from her when I would wrinkle back. And this is Carol. One of these days, Carol will get to come on and share the whole story of Claudia. And it's just been since December. Amazing testimony. She's been on the Daily Detox Plus, and then a few weeks into it, they added the Restore product also. But very, very exciting to see what can happen with someone who really had no quality of life, coming into a quality of life and becoming a person that God created them to be. And so with that, I wanted to introduce Rik Deitsch and have Rik kind of address, we have a lot of questions, Rik, about autism, children or adults with developmental issues. Why would the detox be helping these children or young adults?
Well, there's a lot of theories, okay? And there's a large spectrum. You used to talk about autism, you talk about behavioral issues. There's a lot of different issues. But back in the 70s, there was actually a kid that was given, wasn't digesting his food well. So they actually gave him enzymes, and they gave him chelation therapy as part of just a cleaning process. And he basically just started speaking. They couldn't believe the effects it had. And at first they thought maybe it was a diet, but they started looking at different things. And they found that heavy metal chelation in the 70s and 80s, they did a lot of this research. Heavy metal chelation seemed to improve outcomes in autistic children. So the theory here is pretty straightforward. I've talked about this at length. The problem with heavy metals is that they displace the good metals, the natural metals. And so I can go through the list, but like mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, tin, bismuth, aluminum, antimony can displace calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium. All the good metals that we need in our body get displaced by the heavy metals, which inhibits performance. A lot of different enzymes and proteins in our bodies use metals as cofactors. And when the heavy metals displace those metalloenzymes, metalloproteins, it inactivates those metalloenzymes and metalloproteins. So certain metabolic processes just don't happen. So the theory is that you get rid of the heavy metals, suddenly that metabolic process starts to occur unimpeded, and you see changes in function. And with these kids, one of the abiding theories of autism is that they're poor excretors of heavy metals and toxins. So they tend to have a higher body burden. And that's been measured over and over and over again, that these people have higher body burdens of toxic compounds. So you get rid of those things, everything starts working the way it's supposed to. Now, we did a small study with 63 patients, but we did measure an increase in heavy metal excretion, and we did see improvement in function over time just using the micronized activated zeolite. I would have liked to extend that, but I couldn't get IRB approval to do a much larger study or a sanctioned study for publication. But that was done at the University of Arizona with Dr. Jim Adams. And I have supplied that transcript of a call we did together for people that want to see how we put it together and what the results were.
Awesome. And Rik, I didn't really give you a chance to introduce and honor you today like we like to do. So I would like you to give, if you can, I know I kind of pressured you earlier when I called you and said, oh, I've got so many questions, but I really would like to give you a chance to just introduce yourself a little bit, your background for those that are brand new, and why did you grab a hold of this zeolite and went through all that you did to bring this to us. We're so thankful you did.
Yeah, it was a lot. Okay, so I'll just give a thumbnail sketch. I'm a biochemist. I like to say I'm a little different in the field because I'm both a nutritional biochemist and a pharmaceutical biochemist. So as a pharmaceutical biochemist, I work with drugs. We have drugs in the pipeline for treatment of multiple sclerosis, HIV, adrenomyeloneuropathy. We have over-the-counter products for the treatment of pain. Most of my drug products come from in one shape or another from venomous animals. I did a lot of work in college on cone snail venom, Gila monster venom, and cobra venom. And so we use proteins from cobra venom to do all sorts of stuff. It's kind of interesting because of the physiologic effect it has. So that's me as a pharmaceutical biochemist. As a nutritional biochemist, I had the really great fortune to work at the Rexall Sundown family of companies when we were the largest producer of dietary supplements on the planet. So we own GNC, Metrex, Worldwide Pure Protein, Numico, Cal & Gate, Malupa. We had over 400 PhD scientists working in the company, and it was a eye-opening experience. I got to create more than 50 different dietary supplements. I did over 50 clinical studies on the use of dietary supplements. I got to travel all over the world and educate people about supplementation. And I take that word very seriously, the word supplementation. When you take a supplement, it's supplemental to a healthful diet and exercise. So I want to make sure people understand how important their diet is, how important it is to not be sedentary, get up and move around, especially in this year of COVID when everyone's been home. You gotta, do something. You can't just be a couch potato. I know everyone's been binging Netflix for a year, but try whatever you can to move around and get some physical exercise. So what the zeolite is, though, the zeolite is so different because it's not a supplement. Supplements give the body something. When I started working on the zeolite, I tried to say, well, it's not really giving the body anything. It's actually taking things out of the body that don't belong there. So I did a lot of work with a lot of different supplements. My big push before the zeolite was fiber. And so I could talk about fiber for hours and how important fiber is in your diet. And I would love, love, love to bring a good fiber product to NAVAN'S because I think it's necessary. But when I was working with a bunch of different patients and we were working with fiber products, we saw that they still had digestive issues, and some of the digestive issues were related to toxic exposure. And in the mid 90s, I was approached by a company in Europe that had a zeolite product. It was one of the first commercial zeolite products since the 70s. Because in the early 70s, there was a product in the United States called Zetox, Z-E-T-O-X, that the FDA pulled off the market because when they tested it, it had a lot of mercury in it. And that concerned them. They thought it could be a dangerous product. And this is about the same time when they were pulling a lot of mercury-containing products off the market. If anyone remembers the drug mercurochrome, it was mercurochrome was like a red drug that you would put on cuts and scrapes to kill bacteria. So they were pulling all sorts of mercury-containing drugs off the market and products off the market. But this particular zeolite product I thought was interesting because what's happening when you're removing toxins and heavy metals from your body, and they were seeing some good results. But I started talking to them about what they were doing and what they were hoping to accomplish. And I found that they were missing the mark on a lot of things. And that's where, I don't know, Robin, if you want me to get into the process, micronization activation, and why we do what we do. Okay. So when I looked at raw zeolite, zeolites, first of all, for those that don't know, I'll give you my thumbnail sketch again. Zeolites are naturally occurring minerals. They're found in nature. They're mostly formed from volcanic activity. When a volcano erupts, the lava, the ash goes into salt water. For the most part, the salt water, the lava, the ash, basically through pressure, temperature, concentration, form this cage-like mineral, these crystals of zeolites. And they've been around forever, used for over 800 years in traditional medicine. But the coolest part about this family of compounds is that they're negatively charged. It's one of the few negatively charged minerals found in nature. Because of their cage-like structure and their negative charge, zeolites are really good at filtering. They pull all sorts of things into themselves to trap within themselves. I'm only seeing Chip. Can anyone see me? Or is it just my screen?
No, you're good. You're doing good.
Oh, now I see you. I was looking at Chip with the bottle right in front of him. So, as I said, so zeolites have a cage-like structure, negative charge. They have the ability to draw to themselves and trap within themselves a variety of different compounds, primarily small, highly charged positive compounds. The first zeolites were actually discovered because someone took powdered rock and they heated it up and it boiled. Water came out. So they called it boiling rock. Zeolite is Greek for boiling rock or boiling stone. Why does it boil? Well, there's so much space inside the zeolite cage that fits all sorts of things, including water. And as I said, the zeolites can hold all sorts of things inside them, but there's different zeolites. Different zeolites do different things. There's 49 different naturally occurring zeolites. We use a zeolite called clinoptilolite, and it's spelled just like it sounds, clinoptilolite, naturally occurring zeolite. The coolest thing about clinoptilolite is that because of the charges, net charge across the cage, and the size of the pores, it really, really loves small, highly charged metals, and it doesn't like larger, lower charged metals. And it just so happens that all the things that are bad for us are small and highly charged, and all things that are good for us are larger with a lower charge. So, for example, mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic gets sucked up by the zeolite, but calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, this doesn't get stuck in the zeolite, doesn't like it, okay? And so it's really good at differentiating the good from the bad. So as I said, clinoptilolite has been used for over 800 years in traditional medicine. There's whole societies in India called geophasics, or clay eaters, that have been eating this stuff forever for general health. So we know it's good. We know it works. In the United States, it's been used in animal feed for over 100 years. And over the last 50 or 60 years, it's been used in water filtration, air purification. It's been used in fertilizers. It's even in products for blood clotting. There's a product called Quick Clot, which is a bag of clinoptilolite, and soldiers use it on the battlefield. When they get a cut, when they get a wound, they take this powder zeolite and just put it into the wound. And it's so hygroscopic, just pulls up fluid and causes a clot, an instant clot. And all that is clinoptilolite. But when I started thinking about utilizing it for digestion, for ingestion, as something that could be used as a clathrate or a chelator to pull toxin out of the body, I realized that so many people have missed the mark when they try to launch products really over the last 100 years. And that's because there's two major issues. The first one is the particle sizes are too big. So any products that were out there before were too big to be absorbed from the digestive tract into the bloodstream. And so all the detox was in the digestive tract, which is great. You certainly need to detox your digestive tract, but there's lots of products for that. There's fiber, there's activated charcoal, there's Clostridium, there's all sorts of stuff you can take to clean out your digestive tract. I wanted a systemic detoxifier that would get into the bloodstream and go all over and take out toxins and heavy metals. So we had to make it smaller. When you get the zeolite from a mine site, it's anywhere from 10, 20, 40 microns, all the way up to 200 microns, like a rough granular sand. So we have a process where we micronize, we make it smaller and smaller. And other people do these sort of processes, but we perfected it. So we have a uniform reduced particle size. All of our particles, our average particle size is under 1 micron, and we get all the way down to 0.47 microns or 470 nanometers, which is way small enough to get from the digestive tract into the bloodstream to be a systemic detoxifier. And I'll address that really quick too, because if you read online, the first criticism I got is I was destroying the zeolite by micronizing it. And no, I'm just making it smaller and smaller and smaller. Zeolites are so stable and so strong that they're almost impossible to destroy. Clinoptilolite can last, keep its cage-like structure to almost 900 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours. It is amphoteric, so it exists just as well in acid as in base. It's an incredibly strong, stable cage. It's not just going to fall apart. It's very hard to break apart. When I micronize it, all I'm doing is making smaller cages. The example I use is a diamond. If you take a diamond and you crush a diamond, you get diamond dust. And every particle of diamond dust is still a diamond. It has all the properties of that big diamond. Diamond dust is used in all sorts of industrial applications like drill bits and things like that. It's just a smaller diamond. So when I micronize the zeolite, I get a smaller cage. And I try to make the cage small enough that it gets in the bloodstream and go around the body. Now, as I said, our smallest cages are right around 470, 490 nanometers, which is about 1,000 pores per side on the cage. There are companies out there, and since I launched my product, there's a lot of mimicry out there, a lot of fake products, or well, I'd say products that have tried to mimic what I do, and they're bad products. One such product talks about they don't micronize their product, they nanosize it, they nanoize it. And they say, mine's microns, theirs are nanometers. And I hate this whole nanotechnology marketing twist, because when they say something's nanosized, I can easily say that I'm nanosized. I'm 22 trillion nanometers tall. You know?
Hold on just a second. Carolyn, you're not muted, just so you know.
Okay. So the whole idea is that Carolyn, you're not muted.
Carolyn Walls, if we could just have you mute.
Can Howard just go and mute people?
Yes, we can. Howard, I
All
don't know.
right, so, all right. So when they said their point is that their products are smaller than mine, and their claim is that their cage is 0.9 nanometers.
Howard, thank you, Howard. Great.
Yeah, they're claiming their cage is 0.9 nanometers. That tells you they don't understand zeolites at all, because if you looked at a zeolite cage with the pore in it, the hole in the window in the cage, the window is about 10 nanometers. So 9 nanometers is actually smaller than the hole. It's like you're trying to sell a donut that's smaller than the hole in the middle of the donut. It makes no sense whatsoever. It tells you they don't understand the technology. They don't understand what the product. So no one's doing what I do. We do it consistently. We make sure the way we micronize it, it can't be bigger, because the way we actually use pressure and centrifugation, the output is always less than 1 micron or right around 1 micron, and we get it much smaller than that. So that's the first step. The second step is activation, because we found that when you get zeolite from the mine site, it's really dirty. It's full of toxins and heavy metals. Why? Because that's what zeolites do. They suck up toxins and heavy metals. And so when you have a mine site and you have water flowing through it and air blowing over it, it sucks all that stuff up. And that's why the product Zetox in the early 70s, the FDA found all this mercury in it. Well, that's naturally occurring. The mercury is in the environment, and the zeolite pulled it up. It doesn't necessarily make it bad, because the zeolite's holding on to all that stuff. And like I said, these natural zeolites have been used for hundreds of over 800 years in recorded traditional medicine. But my point is, just because it's in there doesn't make it dangerous, but also doesn't make it very effective. So just like I love Marcy's example is always the dirty sponge. How clean can you make your dishes when you're cleaning with a dirty sponge? And so my activation process uses heat and natural acids and a long time. It's a long, laborious process to basically clean out the zeolites, exchange out all the toxins, all the heavy metals, all the volatile organic compounds. And so you're left with a really clean zeolite cage, micronized zeolite cage. And the only thing left in that solution, the only thing left in your bottle of Daily Detox is the purified micronized zeolite and a little bit of calcium, magnesium as counter ions. And so it's that activated micronized. And no one else is doing anything like it. So it's a much better product. As I said, the people that are out there trying to mimic it either get the science wrong. They certainly don't micronize it the way I do. They can't activate it the way I do. And so we even asked already about the synthetic spray one. I'm first of all going to say that it doesn't make a lot of sense to make a spray zeolite. I don't care how small your atomizer is on a spray. And so people don't know this. Whenever you spray something, whether it's a pump or an aerosol, the tip is called an atomizer because it's basically making small droplets suspended in air. And that's a very small opening. And even my submicron particles would eventually clog a sprayer because it's going to aggregate and it's going to clog the sprayer. And we saw that LiveSmart 360 launched a spray zeolite, I don't know, 12 years ago. And people on like the third spray, the spray stopped working because the zeolite clogged up the spray. So even when I saw it, I thought it was a ridiculous formulation. Anyone that's out there that says they have a spray zeolite, there's nothing in there. There's probably no zeolite in there whatsoever. And we've seen that before. There was a product years ago called Spirit of Sunshine, and we studied the product and we could not find anything in the product. There was no zeolite in the product. It was basically just water. Also, they talk about synthetic zeolite. That doesn't make any sense to me when someone says that they're making a lab-created zeolite. Zeolites are highly abundant. The mine site where I get my clinoptilolite has over 300 million tons of clinoptilolite. So you guys don't worry about running out of it. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots of it, okay? I've got 2 tons in my lab, and that's plenty. That'll probably last us 3 years, just what I have on hand. So the fact is, there's plenty. It's highly abundant in nature. It's very expensive to make or synthesize a zeolite. It makes no sense that someone would say it's better to synthesize it than get it for nature and clean it out. So I'm going to say they're not synthesizing it. That's a fraudulent, false claim. But we'll see, what they actually come back with. Their claim is that because they're synthesizing, it's cleaner. I say, well, that's not true either, because when you synthesize anything, you have byproducts and metabolites. Not to mention, by definition, synthetic zeolites are more labile, and they're going to break apart much more readily than the natural zeolites. All right, so Robin, I know I went way off and I talked for like 20 minutes.
You're good because you covered some of the questions I had that we had, so I appreciate that. I just want to. I think this is actually to me a very positive little testimony, but I want to have you respond to it because it goes along with maybe autism, but anyone detoxing. Someone has a young boy who gave them the Daily Detox Plus. He's 8 years old, has had heavy metal toxicity. He's been taking 20 drops a day as recommended by an upline in 4 doses. So I believe 5 drops 4 times a day.
Yeah.
His heavy metal values have dropped only, this much in 4 months on the product. His aluminum dropped the most. It was 21,400 and it dropped to 9,005, which I thought was pretty amazing. And then I'm going to read the whole thing, let you respond. Over the highest, he's saying it's still over the highest limit. So he's questioning this. Lead also dropped 2,000 units. And then nickel only dropped 15 units. And his mercury levels went up from 4,400 to 7,000. His zinc levels are dangerously low. Now, to me, I'm just going to make a comment being involved in this. To me personally, if I was seeing that kind of detoxing, I would be very encouraged, but to me, I would up the dosage. But Rik, please respond to that.
Well, did they say how they're testing it?
No.
Right, so here's the thing. When we have toxic heavy metals in our body, one of the things the body tries to do is it tries to prevent damage from those toxins. So it has a process called sequestration. It pulls the toxins, heavy metals, the volatile organic compounds, and it hides it in tissue, usually what's known as metabolically inert or inactive tissue, primarily fat and bone. Okay, so different toxins like to hide in different places. Volatile organic compounds always go into fat, like dioxins, dioxanes, benzenes, toluene, phthalates, furans. Heavy metals love fat as well. They also love bone. Calcium, lead loves to displace calcium in bone. So anytime you have lead poisoning, it's going to wind up in your bones. Mercury loves the fatty tissue around your nerves, the myelin sheaths around your nerves. So mercury always lands there, which is why mercury in many cases causes neurologic symptoms down the road. All right. Your entire measure of the heavy metals in your body and heavy metals toxins is called your body burden. There is no way to know your body burden. There's no test to say what is in your body right now. Okay. Well, there's one test, is cremation, so we can cremate someone to measure what's left, but you can only do that once. Okay. So what people tend to do is they do hair analysis, blood or urine analysis, and try to look for whatever toxins are basically in circulation. That doesn't tell you what's trapped in your bone, in your muscle, in your fat. It doesn't tell you what's sequestered in your body. Sometimes they do something called a challenge test, where they'll give you something that tries to separate the toxins from sequestration, get them back into circulation, and then see what comes out. And that'll tell you basically, we've done that before in clinical studies. That'll tell you kind of what is coming out. But the real fact is, if someone has high toxicity, chances are they're not a good excreter, and they're holding on to all this stuff. So when you see lowering amounts over time, even via challenge, it doesn't mean that the product is working or not working. The best thing to do is like exactly what we did with the coal miner study, the West Virginia coal miner study, is we took samples day 4, day 7, and then weekly thereafter, and we tried to see, as you continue to use the product, what happens, what's coming out. And if you're doing especially urine analysis, you should see increasing levels coming out, not decreasing levels, because decreasing levels means you're not excreting them. You're holding on to them. Okay. So as you see more and more and more coming out, that's a good thing. And the coolest part about the coal miner study is we saw that the zeolite had clear preferences. It had basically what is the affinity for the zeolite. So zeolite likes mercury the best. Okay. It's mercury, lead, arsenic, tin. And so the first week with the coal miners, we saw all this mercury coming out. Right. Then as we got to the end of the first week into the second week, we saw less and less and less mercury. And then we saw lead coming out, and cadmium and arsenic. Then by week 4, we start seeing mercury again. And we feel the reason for that is that as we pulled out all these toxins, the mercury that was sequestered, that was hiding in their fat and their muscle, their bone, started being released back into the system. And then by week 4, we started pulling that out again because it was in circulation. So we saw the affinity range of the zeolite. We saw what was coming out over time. Okay. So obviously, it's a much longer answer than you wanted for this. I would question how they're measuring and what they expect to see in this measurement. But the proof is really in the pudding. You got to look at the health of the patient. You got to see if you did a complete blood count, look at his numbers. I'm sure if they had any numbers that were off, they're going to start coming back in a line, especially mineral content, electrolyte status. All that stuff gets better and better over time. Adrenals improve, lipids usually improve. So you try to look at the whole patient, see as they're improving over time as you use the product.
I've got a real simple one that kind of goes along with what you're just talking about. And I forgot to ask last time. So Joanne asked, I'm using some essential oils, and will this interfere with the pH balance that the zeolite corrects in my body?
Well, the
Just
essential
wondered
oils.
if it would be correct. Using the essential oils, will that bother what the zeolite's doing?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. The essential oils are fat soluble, so they're oils by definition. So they do get absorbed. If anything, they might actually, depending on what the essential oil is, they might help displace some of the toxins that are in the fat that are restored and sequestered. So there should be no interaction.
It seems to me too, this is a good place to say that what we see is that everything works better with the zeolite there. I mean, with it starting to cleanse the body, and that the trash out of the body utilizes the nutrition we're doing, food, even pharmaceuticals work better in the body.
And that's yeah, I tried to get that across. And I said that at the very beginning, that it's not a supplement. It doesn't really add anything to your body. It takes things out that don't belong there. And I try to say this when everyone says, does it work in this disease or that disease? Does it work with this condition or that condition? My answer is basically the same. I can look for specific mechanisms if it makes sense. But for the most part, I say this stuff does not belong in your body. You need to get it out. And a cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. I've said this before. The body is amazing. It's this amazing machine. The more you learn about it, blood clotting. I mean, if you know how blood clots, there's 12 steps to blood clotting. It's one of the most complicated processes in the human body. And you look at blood clotting, if any one of these things goes wrong, you either clot too much, you don't clot enough. And it's amazing to see all the things that have to happen just when you get a cut and it forms a scab. It's amazing to watch. And yet these toxic heavy metals get in the way. They get in the way of those natural processes. So what happens when you get rid of these toxins, get rid of these heavy metals? Everything happens the way it's supposed to. A cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. That's the common denominator.
Good place for us to put our extended disclaimer in, which I meant to say is anything that's mentioned on here today, we're just letting Rik address it, and any testimonies, if we say that, we're not making any medical claims. Your body's doing the healing. Just what Rik said is perfect. I just wanted to add that a little bit. Rik, I wanted to move on to this. I think this is a really exciting subject, and I wanted Chip to come in before you address this. We had a question said, I have not seen or heard any results from people recovering from drug addiction using the Daily Detox. Do we have any information or results I can share with a family member who has 3 children who have addictions and who are in and out of rehab? Okay, so Chip, would you come in with a couple testimonies? Again, not making any claims, but it's such amazing things that happens with that. So Rik, Chip, I'm gonna have you share, and then you turn it on over to Rik.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you very much. Well, let's just go back in time to like near the beginning. And for the beginning, in Rik, it was in the 1990s when he started asking himself these questions that he's now answering today. For me, my first exposure to his ideas was the 15th of August, 2005. Flash forward to January 2006. Marcy and I always went to the National Western Stock Show and had a booth near the rodeo grounds and where all the animals were shown. And we had healthy products in the booth. Well, for the very first time, we had something new, and it was Rik's product. Had no idea what it would do. And I'm just listening to him, and the answer is always yes. Will it help this? Will it help that? Will it remove this? Will it remove that? And the answer is always yes, by one means or another, because it's going to make you healthier. And if it's not direct, it's going to be an indirect benefit, right? But we didn't know all those things in that day. So we had gotten to know the people around the, rodeo grounds and the stock show over the years. I literally stood over the course of 10 years for 6 months in that booth, 17 days a year for 10 years, 170 days. That's 6 months standing in that one. And you wonder how, these things get into your head. Well, here comes a bunch of pro cowboys, and they're performing in the show, and they come by one day and they say, trying to quit chewing, got anything that might help? I don't know, but hey, how about we find out together? And if you don't know the answer and you're on the call today and you're brand new and somebody asks you something, how about we find out together? I know it's good for you. Let's see what happens. So we handed over the bottle and said, here, try this, let us know what happens. And they just were affluent with their praise over the course of the next 2 weeks, talking about how much it helped them and how bad they wanted to quit and how they tried and how that nothing let them get off the hook once they were on. By the way, the ultimate way to avoid those things, don't start in the first place, in case anybody really wants to know. But so that's all fine. We go through that, and this is the very next question that hits us when we get home. Get a call from Hawaii, and it's a mom. Her daughter is in prison, hooked on meth, and pregnant. Hi, will this help? I mean, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. I'm reviewing the memory banks. The only thing I can see is the Cowboys. I said, well, here's the story about the Cowboys. Worked for them. Let's see what happens, for you. And so obviously she was in a spot where she wasn't going to be, making herself worse by taking more of the bad thing. But here's what happened. Mom was happy, daughter was happy, got better. And the ultimate result, the baby was born not a meth baby. So there's, that's, to me, that's the ultimate answer to the question that you could ever have. Thus encouraged, I've gone forward 15 more years. And, you keep encouraging us like this, we're going to think you're onto something, Rik.
Wow. I don't think I've heard those stories.
Oh, I'm full of them,
Well, as Chip said, anyone asks you if it's going to help for anything, my answer is usually it can hurt and it might help, so you might as well try it. When it comes to getting off of addictive products, though, we've looked at a couple of interesting mechanisms, and understand, as I said, clinoptilate, this particular zeolite, has been around for over 800 years in traditional medicine, but for the last 100 years or so, it's been used in animal feed, it's been used in fertilizer. So there's been a lot of studies, especially among farmers and ruminants, goats, cows, and sheep. And there's been a lot of rat studies and mouse models. And one mouse model really is surprising. They were looking at the brains of the mice over time. And the real concern when they first started doing this was whether or not it would cause excess or subtracted mineralization in the brains of mice. They were worried about deposition of calcium, magnesium, sodium, things like that, because of the zeolite moving ions around the body. And the surprising finding in that study was they saw an increase in serotonin receptors in the brains of these mice. And it was inexplicable. Why did these mice have more serotonin receptors when they had the zeolite? And just so you know, serotonin is one of those neurotransmitters that makes you happy, makes you feel good. And most antidepressants, in one way or another, increase serotonin in the brain so that you're not depressed. So that study alone was enough to say, can clinoptilate function as an antidepressant? And we do have some proposed mechanisms of why. I could go into neurochemistry if you guys really want me to, but it's just one of the interesting things. And one of the problems with drug withdrawal is depression, anxiety, a reduction of serotonin and dopamine in the brain, a reduction in endorphins in the brain. And if these receptors are coming up and these receptors force the body to create more serotonin, more dopamine, then the fact is it's actually working counter to the withdrawal from those drugs. So that's one of the things. And then the second thing, too, is a lot of the side effects from withdrawal are simply metabolites from the drugs still in circulation. And if the zeolite is helping to pull those out, you're detoxing and pulling that stuff out faster. And they even do this in the hospital. They'll do a form of dialysis where they just try to clean the blood as quickly as possible. That has tons of side effects in itself, but it's almost like a forced condensed rehab or forced condensed detox. And instead of doing it like that, we're pulling out the blood and filtering the blood and trying to give it back to them. We're just using the zeolite to basically be a moving filter through the blood and the lymph in the body and cleaning them out as fast as you can.
Awesome. So. Oh, that was great, Rik. I'm moving on. I got several more and many questions about eyes right now. Eye pressure specifically, and again, we're not going to make any medical claims, but asking about specifically against cataracts. Someone asked about, could it have glaucoma? We have this, I'm just going to add this real quick. We have a nephew who has a rare disease that affects his eyes and speech. Do you want me to go into that one right now, Rik, too?
Sure.
Okay, so every so many months, he has to go in and take shots directly in the eyes. Very unsettling, I can't imagine. I request the medical term, and I gave that to Rik earlier because I can't pronounce it, guys. It's PXE,
yeah.
And Rik's going to take over.
Yeah, I did look it up. Yeah.
Okay. So,
pseudoxanthoma elasticum.
So thank you, Rik.
PXE, yeah.
So wondering if we have any hope for this young man with the Daily Detox, question by a family member. And then also, why would this, and I know we have testimonials that we had just not too many weeks ago about actually helping with those other issues that I talked about, but why would this maybe help, Rik?
All right, so there's so many different things you're talking about. I'll get to the PXE last, okay, because that's a specific genetic disorder. So when it comes to the eyes, first of all, we know why this is helping with all sorts of disease states. But the most concern for supplement users is, I'm a healthy person, why should I take it? And what we've seen, because the great majority of people that take supplements are in a category we call the worried well, okay? They're well, they want to stay well, they're taking supplements to stay healthy and try to maintain their health or even get healthier than they are. And so my biggest concern when I launched my first commercial zeolite product in 2004 was that there would not be a tangible benefit for the general population, for the general healthy person. They just had to take it on faith that my product was helping them. And we found out within weeks that just wasn't the case. Everybody started feeling better. Everyone started having all sorts of benefit. And what we've seen across the board, even in the generally healthy populations, 4 basic things. They report more energy during the day, better sleep quality at night. They report improved cognitive function. They're thinking clearer. Some people even say they didn't even know they had a mental fog, and now they're thinking clear. I had one guy who said he used to lose his keys all the time. He didn't think twice about it. You lose your keys, you forget where you put your keys. And he goes a week on the zeolite, and he said, "Where did I put my keys?" And a picture of his keys sitting on the corner of his dresser just popped into his head. And he goes, "I couldn't believe how fast my mind was functioning, how fast his retrieval system." For those of you old enough to remember a Rolodex, that the Rolodex of your head was working, just going through it. And so people report improved cognitive function. And then lastly, and this was the big surprise for me, people report improved visual acuity, especially night vision and glare recovery. And so when we had to look at that, especially with the West Virginia coal miners, because it was measurable improvement in eyesight with these coal miners, we said, why? Why could you possibly have improvement in eyesight? Why are the eyes functioning better? And we started looking at a bunch of different mechanisms. The abiding theory is about liver health. So the job of the liver is to detox the body, is to take out all sorts of things, all sorts of toxins through a process called transformation, where they take the toxin and transform them to make them water soluble so you can actually eliminate them from the body, just urinate them out. And so the liver is a very busy organ. Everything you eat, everything you drink goes through your digestive tract, goes to the liver first before it gets distributed, and then goes back to the liver during circulation. And so our theory is that as we detox and as we remove these toxins from the body, we're doing the liver's job, and the liver basically has more time. And so the liver is functioning better because we've taken pressure off of the organ. Well, one of the jobs of the liver through an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase is to make an enzyme called glutathione. Make a product called glutathione. It's tripeptide. But the enzyme glutathione peroxidase is a very busy little enzyme. It's got a lot of jobs, but all that takes place in the liver. Now, glutathione is important because glutathione is the primary antioxidant in the eye. And when you think about the eye is the only cells in your body that are alive that face the outside world. Your skin, your hair, your nails are all dead cells. They're condensed, compressed, dead cells. The eye is alive. All these cells are alive and they're functioning. And because of that, they go through photooxidation. They go through oxidative stress much more readily than anything else in the body. Light hits it, creates free radicals. So you constantly need antioxidants to basically protect the eyes from free radical damage. And that's what glutathione does. Glutathione goes to the eyes, protects the eyes, and improves vision and improves function. So the theory is liver's healthier, more glutathione, healthier eyes, improved vision, improved eye quality and eye structure. So that was the first thing. And then what happened, surprisingly, is and it started in Asia. People started taking the zeolite and putting it in their eyes. Now, I've never recommended using the zeolite any other way than taking it orally because that's how I tested it. You take it orally, it gets absorbed from the digestive tract into the bloodstream. It travels through the blood and the lymph in the body and acts as a systemic detoxifier. Well, these people were doing it. They were just putting it in their eyes. And I've told the story before. I don't know if you want me to talk about the retinoblastoma, So this one Japanese oncologist worked at the Tokyo Holistic Cancer Center. He calls me at my home at 3 a.m. because some distributor gave him my home number. And he's yelling at me in Japanese. I speak very little Japanese. Skoshi. Nihongo skoshi desu kanashimasu. So I'm trying to talk to him. And it comes out that he had a patient with a retinoblastoma, which is cancer of basically the retina. And because it affects the back of the eye, it metastasizes in the brain readily. It's almost universally fatal by the time they diagnose it. And he had this patient that was putting the zeolite drops in his eyes, and he got better. And so he's freaking out on me. He wants me to do studies in retinoblastoma. This is the treatment, the cure for retinoblastoma. I said, first of all, I don't believe that's the case, but we can look at what's happening with this particular patient. But certainly we're not curing cancer. That's not the point of this product. It's not the studies we're doing at the time. Meanwhile, that story got out. Those distributors talked about it. And 2 weeks after that, I was doing a meeting in Hong Kong. I had 2,000 people in the audience. In the middle of my meeting, I looked around and everybody was putting the product in their eyes. So that became the story. Now, it's not dangerous to put the product in the eyes. It is a suspension. It's a colloidal suspension. It's a powder suspended in a liquid. And so it might feel a little gritty or a little grainy in the eye if you choose to put it in their eyes. I tell you this, my wife puts it in her eyes all the time. She has seasonal allergies. She has all sorts of stuff she loves to put in her eyes. We don't recommend that as a product because we can only recommend as an oral supplement, but people do it all the time. They put it in their eyes, they put it in their ears, they put it in their nose. Gabriel Cousins from Tree of Life, one of his first questions is how much he should put in a colonic, in an enema. I'm like, well, we haven't studied it that way, so I have no recommendation for how much zeolite to put in an enema. But he does it, and they have incredible results for detoxifying, you know? So yes, it can help directly in the eye, probably for the same reasons. It's detoxifying, it's pulling things out of the eye, and it's probably also improving glutathione status in the eye. So that's when people worry about eye condition and those issues. But as far as your PXE, your pseudoxanthoma elasticum, that's a genetic disorder, which is a mineralization disorder. For some reason, they're not properly moving calcium around their body. And so calcium starts to deposit in places. And when it deposits in the eye, they get, there's a Latin word for it, but they get a orange peel look to their eye because of these calcium deposits. And so they do all sorts of laser surgery and things like that. Now, I do want to dig into this a little bit. I'm not familiar with this particular condition, but in college, I did a lot of work with calcium binding proteins. And calcium, this is probably, the problem here is probably one or more of those calcium binding proteins isn't functioning properly. But what calcium binding proteins do is they grab calcium, and there's a section of protein called an EF hand. It actually kind of looks like a hand. And it's the whole hand has a -2 charge, and calcium is a +2 charge. So the hand grabs a calcium and it moves around the body. Okay. And whenever it gets to some place that has a lot of magnesium, magnesium also has a +2 charge. It drops the calcium and picks up a magnesium. And that's why calcium and magnesium are used together to be able to utilize the calcium magnesium throughout the body. That's where CalMag supplements come from. And so my guess is one or more of his calcium binding proteins aren't functioning properly. And I wonder if there's a way to use exogenous calcium binding proteins like troponin C or provalbumin to actually treat the condition. So I'm going to look and see if people are doing that. Right now, the treatments are basically amelioration of symptoms, laser therapy for the eyes, for example, but they are using bisphosphonates and stable PPI analogs, which are anti-mineralization products to try and reduce minerals in the eye and in the skin. This study I'm reading now, I can send it to you. There's actually a free article online. They're looking at pathomechanism and treatment development. This was published in February of 2019. And it looks like there's some treatments they're working on now. This was published in the American Society for Investigative Pathology. But I'll pull the study, Robin. I'll send it to you, and you can send it to them. Yes. But it does talk about treatments, and this is now 2 years ago. So we can see, we can probably go to their lab and see what they've been working on since, and see if there's any clinical studies, things like that. You can also always go to clinicalstudies.gov. And see if you can type in your condition, things like that. See who's working on stuff, what new stuff is being done. I will say this, and you've seen me talk about this before. We've seen people with kidney stones have fewer kidney stones when they use the zeolite. And one of the abiding theories is that the zeolite doesn't like calcium, but calcium still goes into the zeolite, especially if there's a lot of it there. And we believe that the zeolite is helping shuttle ions, healthy ions around the body for better utilization. If it's true, and the big issue is that calcium is improperly mineralizing parts of his body, then the zeolite might help a lot. And again, this is just a theory based on mechanism. If the zeolite is keeping calcium in solution and keeping it in circulation, it could be preventing it from mineralizing throughout the body and might reduce some of the symptoms or might slow down the progression of the condition. All right. So certainly it's not going to hurt. And I believe through that mechanism, it might help. But like I said, I want to dig into a little bit and I'll send you some of the research I find.
We appreciate you, Rik, doing this. This is awesome to be able to have you address some of these things for us. I'm gonna, let's see. I kind of addressed this from another perspective, but this person is asking about her friend who has primary, I'm not gonna say it right, biliary cirrhosis of the liver, but
biliary. Yes.
Biliary, thank you.
It's part of the bile ducts, yes.
Yeah. And, I remember, Marcy, the simple way, the non-science way is, to me, the zeolite, and it's an easy way to explain it, is that it works like mini liver and kidneys. It takes the pressure off your kidney and liver and lets them do their thing while it's getting rid of the toxic load. Is that kind of,
Yeah, I said that before. Yeah, you're taking some pressure off the livers, pressure off the kidney, because their job is to filter and detoxify, and the zeolite's doing it for you. It's filter. The zeolite is actually working like a filter. It goes through your body, and as things go through it, it's kind of filtering through your blood and your lymph, and the stuff that should be stuck in it gets stuck in until you basically urinate it out. So you're right. It's doing the work of the liver and the work of the kidneys. Depending on how you take it, how much water you drink to try and process all of that stuff. Now, you got liver, you got cirrhosis of the liver. You got to talk first about the underlying cause of it. Is it one of the 7 hepatitises? Is it alcoholism? Is it drug use? There's all sorts of things that can lead to that. So you first start with the underlying issue and address that. Okay. If it is alcoholism, you got to stop drinking. Okay. If it is drug abuse, you got to stop doing the drugs. If it's hepatitis, and remember, hepatitis simply means inflammation of the liver. There's 7 different types of hepatitis: A, B, C, D, F, and G, D, E, F, and G. And some are fungal, some are viral, and some are bacterial. So depending on what type of hepatitis you have, treat it. Okay. They're all treatable in one way, shape, or form. Hep C, which was the worst, as virus that was completely untreatable 5 years ago, now has a cure. It went from being untreatable to being curable, which is one of the only times we've ever seen that in the history of me working in this field, where you went from not even being able to treat something to actually being able to give them a drug to cure it. Okay, so all these are treatable in one way, shape, or form. Now, as you said, the zeolite will take pressure off the liver and allow the liver to try and function properly. The liver is an amazing organ. The liver is one of the only organs in the body that can completely regenerate itself given the opportunity. In fact, you can be a living liver donor. You can donate as much as 1/3 of your liver to someone else, and your liver will grow back over time. Okay, which is kind of cool, So yes, the liver, given the opportunity, is going to improve over time, but you got to find out what the underlying condition is and what caused it. Okay.
Thank you. I've got an interesting one. We talked about lithium way back, because it has heavy metal in it. And this person actually is asking for her friend because her chiropractor had put her on a natural form of lithium, and she's assuming it's lithium orotate.
Yeah.
Do you have any, would it hurt her to take the zeolite with that?
Yeah, so I don't know what the natural form of lithium is. I don't know what she's taking. Lithium is usually only prescribed in cases of some form of psychosis, bipolar disorder, things like that. And so if she's taking lithium for that reason, she should be under a doctor's care so that she can be properly monitored, because there's other things to look for. Okay, especially if you're bipolar, it could be very dangerous not to be properly monitored. Okay, that being the case, that was one of my major concerns when we first launched the product. Anybody that was taking drugs that contain metals, I was recommending not to use the zeolite in any way, shape, or form. That was my first recommendation. And then people started coming to me first with cancer therapies that contain platinum, like cisplatin and carboplatin. And we found that the zeolite would pull the platinum out of those drugs. And so the recommendation was, on the days you're undergoing chemotherapy, do not take the zeolite. Allow the chemotherapy to function. Lithium, though, we decided to take a dive into lithium, and we worked with 2 hospitals in Seattle, and we looked at the patients who were taking lithium, and we looked at their lithium loads as they use the zeolite. Lithium is a relatively large atom, and it's a +1 charge. So it has very low affinity for the zeolite. And we found that those patients, when they were using zeolite, actually had better lithium status. It was actually more stable over time. And so if they use the lithium, they used it as prescribed, it was actually much more effective. And so we didn't see an issue with the zeolite and the lithium.
Awesome. I have several others. I know we're almost out of time, but I'm going to keep you on for a few more minutes if you're okay with that. You good, Rik?
Yours. My wife actually went out. My wife went to Jacksonville, so I'm all alone.
Oh, great. All right. Let's keep going. So this is a great question. My sister-in-law has CREST, autoimmune disease, which has resulted in multiple issues: lung disease, pulmonary fibrosis, RA, scleroderma, and she is also on a variety of meds. She just started on the drops, 40 drops per day, 10 drops 4 times a day. Is this sufficient, or any other recommendations that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at CREST syndrome. Okay, so it's a syndrome. Understand this: there's a big difference between diseases and syndromes. Okay, syndromes are a basket of symptoms. Okay, so when someone has a syndrome, they have some sort of basket of symptoms put together that could be caused by a variety of different things. Okay, so CREST syndrome is limited cutaneous form of systemic sclerosis. So it's an autoimmune disease where the autoimmune disease is attacking connective tissue. So it's much like rheumatoid arthritis or that whole family of rheumatic diseases. The zeolite does function as the immunomodulatory agent, and I'll try to explain what that means. When you have an autoimmune condition, your immune system, for some reason, decides that normal healthy tissue is not normal healthy tissue. It's a foreign body that needs to be attacked. Okay, and there's a variety of reasons for that, and I can point to all sorts of underlying things. Like, for example, multiple sclerosis. The immune system attacks the myelin-specific protein that's on the sheath, the myelin sheath around the nerve, and it destroys the insulating sheath around the nerve, and so your nerves can no longer conduct electricity. You can't conduct nerve function goes down, and the reason for that seems to be that the protein, the myelin-specific protein, looks very similar to the protein on the surface of Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. So one of the underlying theories of MS is that you got Epstein-Barr virus at some point. Your immune system created antibodies to that, and now your immune system is confused because that protein looks like Epstein-Barr virus. So it's confused. It's like it's too close, and so the immune system can't tell the difference. Okay, and your immune system is it's called your humoral immune system. It's your immune system takes pictures of the bad guys and is mixing up the pictures. So it mixes up the picture of the bad guy with good guys and attacks. So same thing with the other conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. The immune system thinks that joints and connective tissue are bad guys and attacks the joints and connective tissues. So the way you treat autoimmune diseases almost universally is with immunosuppressive agents. And these are what's known as biologic drugs or biologic immunosuppressives, Humira, Enbrel, drugs like that. And what they do is they shut off your immune system. And by shutting off your immune system, it prevents the damage from the immune system. Well, the problem is we need an immune system. There's a reason we have an immune system, because God forbid you're taking one of those drugs and you get sick. In fact, if you've ever seen a commercial for Humira or Enbrel or any of those sort of drugs, listen to the litany of side effects and complications from the drug. It'll say, have your doctor test you for infection before using Humira. Have your doctor check you for tuberculosis. Infections are more common when using the drug. Cancer and death has happened. Okay, so you're taking a drug to try and prevent something, but any disease now is going to hurt you because you don't have a functioning immune system. So I've always been really a proponent of immunomodulating agents. What could you do to help the immune system function, but not have a hyperimmune response, which is what these things are. The immune system gets out of control and starts attacking healthy tissue. And the zeolite is known as a basically immunomodulating agent. There have been 3 published studies that look at its ability to allow the immune system to function normally without causing a hyperimmune reaction. 2 of the studies, one of the studies was in rats, and 2 of the studies were in vitro studies, and basically test tube analyses looking at S1P and things like that in the immune system. But it does seem to function as something that better regulates immune system health. And we have seen patients that use it that have blood levels, SED rate, sedimentary rate, and anti-nuclear antibodies, ANA, are very high in people with autoimmune diseases, and people with the zeolite, we see those numbers come down over time, which means that the entire autoimmune etiology is improving over time. Okay, so anyone that has an autoimmune disease, this is going to help. It's going to help in one way or another as the body gets healthier. Okay.
So
I'm looking at some of the, someone asked for Crohn's disease and CRMO. I'm looking at the chat box. Do you want me to get to those really quick?
Go ahead. I've got a couple more, but go ahead and hit those real quick. I don't want to leave.
Someone asked about mild Crohn's disease. So Crohn's disease is kind of interesting because it's also an autoimmune disease, but we know that Crohn's disease is actually caused by paratuberculosis. Okay, so there's a mycobacterium called paratuberculosis, not tuberculosis, paratuberculosis. It causes Crohn's disease in humans. It causes something called Yanni's disease in cattle. So what I recommend is anyone that has Crohn's disease, go and get tested for paratuberculosis and treat that first, because that can cause other damage down the road. And then Crohn's disease itself is an autoimmune disease where the immune system is attacking the receptors in the digestive tract. So you wind up with all sorts of digestive problems, okay? You're not properly absorbing the nutrients from your food. You can have bouts of constipation, diarrhea because of all these things. So I do recommend first getting checked for paratuberculosis and treat the underlying infection. But then certainly eat a healthful diet, take plant enzymes and probiotics and prebiotics so you have better digestion. You want to eat smaller meals throughout the day, all these things to improve nutrient absorption. That's the biggest thing. But then again, I just talked about autoimmune diseases and that the zeolite is in and of itself an immunomodulating agent. And so, yes, it's going to help prevent the damage from the immune system attacking those receptors in the digestive tract. Okay, and then CRMO. Let's see what CRMO is.
And down below, she says it's chronic, recurrent, multifocal, or whatever that last word is there.
Multifocal osteomyelitis.
Thank you.
Okay. Sometimes called chronic non-bacterial osteomyelitis. Okay. So it's inflammation of the bone, causing pain, redness, swelling, and a way the immune system protects itself from infection and germs. So yeah, again, another thing people don't understand is inflammation in and of itself is caused by the immune system. Okay. Inflammation is an overreaction of the immune system. So if you're modulating the immune response, you're going to be modulating inflammation as well. There's other things I probably recommend for this person if they want to reach out to me directly, and I could give some other recommendations, including anti-inflammatories that we produce that aren't part of NAVAN. I'd be happy to help them with that. But certainly the zeolite's going to help because it's going to be immunomodulatory. It's going to help move things around, move calcium around as well. But there's other things I would recommend besides the inflammation. I recommend things for mineralization. Okay.
Yes, and
specifically.
Make sure they have either mine or Chip's email, and anyone on here that didn't get your question answered or has other questions that they need answered right away, just email to Rik and to Chip Littlejohn at gmail.com or mrwest@sti.net, and we'll make sure we get those to Rik. Rik is a very, very busy man. We do protect his time, but he is here, once a month, but we can also get to him in between with to help you. So thank you, Rik, for offering that. We really appreciate that. Just a couple more things. I did want to ask this, because this is so important to our men and us women who have men in our lives. We're so concerned about this. I visited my doctor today, and because my PSA is high, he's suggesting quarterly injections of Zeoladex. That's the spelling, Zeoladex. Is there something I can do to avoid these injections?
Zeolite.
Okay.
Yeah. So if he just has a high PSA, he shouldn't be on any kind of hormone therapy. Right? The first thing you do is actually check the prostate, see if the prostate's inflamed, because there's a lot of problems with the prostate that have nothing to do with prostate cancer. And this is basically a chemotherapy to treat prostate cancer. Okay. Also used for endometriosis. Another thing is a hormone-associated therapy or hormone-based chemotherapy. Okay. Yeah, so the first thing you do, first of all, every man eventually will have some sort of prostate issues, okay? And for those of you who don't know what the prostate is this little kind of walnut-shaped gland and muscle that surrounds the urethra And over time, it actually allows you, if men know when they urinate, it's what actually can stop urine or allow it to come through, and how you control urination. But it also produces seminal fluid and all sorts of things for males. And over time, it's a busy little gland slash muscle that will, at some point in your life, probably become inflamed. For the most part, that's benign prostatic hypertrophy. So it's not cancer, it's just inflammation of the prostate. And there's lots and lots and lots and lots of things you can do for inflammation of the prostate, including increasing fluid. You could take saw palmetto, for example. I gave a lecture because saw palmetto and beta-cysteine from saw palmetto has been used in prostate health for literally 1,000 years in recorded traditional medicine. And I gave this lecture once at the Cleveland Clinic, and the one physician, this one physician said, "How did the Indians know that it was helping their prostate? Like they knew what a prostate was." I said, "Well, no, but they knew that they got up 20 times in the middle of the night because they had to go pee, and that was the issue. And when they took this plant, those issues went away." Okay, so it's pretty obvious what it was doing. Okay, and now of course we have clinical evidence of how it was helping. So there's lots of things you can do for BPH. PSA, prostate-specific antigen, is not a test per se. It's a screen. So anytime there's something wrong with the prostate, PSA levels will go up. And you want to look for trends over time. There's all sorts of things that'll knock PSA up a little and then down a little, up a little and down a little. If you see the PSA go up and then it's going up and up and up, that tells you to look for more things. Check the prostate, see if the prostate is inflamed. If it is, then you do a biopsy. At that point, you can tell, is it prostate cancer or is it not prostate cancer? You can stage it and decide what's next, okay? But just having a high PSA, to me, is not an indication you got to start chemotherapy. There's all sorts of things you have to do first, okay? So I think it's kind of jumping the gun for him to start with the drug right away, okay?
And it wouldn't hurt to get on a really good dose of the zeolite, because I know Chip has been helping thousands and thousands of guys. I always have the guys call Chip, and boy, he's good at helping them with those issues. And just we've had some great results.
Yeah, I've never met a woman with prostate issues unless she was married to one. So.
Okay, Rik, I know we're past the time and Neil's not here. We're going to keep going for a couple more minutes because Neil's not stopping me. So no, I'm just kidding. He's always so good about keeping me on time. So guys, if you have to leave, you're welcome. Don't worry. We're not going to feel bad because you have to leave. But I just want, I have a question about narcolepsy, if it would help that. I don't see why not. It might help. Let's try it, right?
Yeah, narcolepsy is kind of funny that there's actually a dozen different mechanisms that cause narcolepsy. Okay, so there's all sorts of things. There's only one approved drug for narcolepsy. It was Jazz Therapeutics came up with it as an orphan drug. I think it was approved really about 10 years ago. So there's all sorts of different things that lead to narcolepsy. And for people that don't know, narcolepsy is sudden sleepiness or actually just falling asleep, usually in response to stress. The underlying mechanism seems to be what they call as part of the anti-sympathetic nervous system, where the body tries to just push down stress as quickly as possible. So you go to sleep. You're stressed out. How do you handle stress? You fall asleep. The biggest treatments for narcolepsy are in fact anti-stressor treatments or adaptogenic treatments. And there's all sorts of adaptogenic herbs you can take and things like that. So there's a lot of recommendations for people with narcolepsy. I will say this, that if narcolepsy is caused because of metabolic imbalances, then certainly the zeolite is going to help. It certainly couldn't hurt. I'd be really interested to see narcoleptics on the zeolite and see what their downstream effects are. I would think that's probably going to be beneficial, but I can't tell you a clear mechanism of why.
Awesome. The rest of the questions, Rik, there are a few more, but I'd like to kind of keep them for next time. And I may email you with a few if we need them directly, because we are past time. We kind of try to keep the call at an hour so that it's easy to send out and everybody listens to the whole thing. But it's so amazing to have you. We are so blessed. I know I speak for everyone. We've got, most of us have been able to hang in there. I know it's late night, and some of them had to get off, but barely anybody's even left our call. So thank you, Rik, so much. Howard, if you want to just open the call, let everybody say goodbye to Rik and thank you. We're just
Robin,
going to
I'll
end with
just say
that.
one more thing. I don't know if it's out there yet, but Navan did ask me to come to Nashville on the 9th. I don't know if something's happening that weekend.
Yes.
But apparently there are people that are going to be in Nashville for Navan, and I'm going to be there on the 9th. So I'll be live. It's my first kind of like since the beginning of COVID. It's my first live meeting. So I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if it's going to be recorded, but hopefully whatever happens, we'll make sure it gets recorded and gets put up online for people that can't make it. But I have committed to be at whatever the Navan thing is on April 9th.
Oh, excited. We have several of our team that are going. They're going to be very excited to meet you there, Rik. Thank you so much.
Fabulous.
Hey, Rik, Judy and I will be there to see you.
Oh, great. Okay.
I was going to ask, as a matter of fact, to see if you could come to that. So that's excellent.
Yeah, they just mentioned the other day, and my wife said I'm allowed to go. So,
well, thank you so much. If your question didn't get asked, guys, we will ask it next time, or email me if you really got to have an answer. We'll get it to Rik and see if he's got time to answer in between the calls. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Rik. Thanks, Chip. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rik, for the information on the eyes. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruby.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thanks.
So
Thank you, Rik.
I am muted, so you should say thanks.